Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Unconventional Attorney Podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Small, and I am the Unconventional Attorney. Today, I'm excited to bring you another Attorney X episode. If you are unfamiliar with this, I am basically interviewing anonymously law firm owners from around the globe to find out what's working for them, the kind of revenue that they're really making, the kind of challenges that they're really facing, and uncovering all of the things that they are afraid to expose out there in the real world under their own names. Now, the only way that I can continue to have these interviews is for law firm owners just like you to come on the show. We all get to learn from the information and the experiences we share, and this is my call to action for you to come and join me as an Attorney X guest. It's very simple. It's 20 minutes. And if you come on, I give you a free t-shirt that you can't get anywhere else. So if you walk around and you see people wearing Attorney X t-shirts, it's because they have taken the plunge and they are Attorney X alumni. To sign up is very simple. All you have to do is go to theunconventionalattorney.com/Attorney X. You can pick a date and time that work for you, and when that date and time come, we'll chat. Okay, so that's theunconventionalattorney.com/Attorney X. Go and schedule your date today so we can keep up this really cool deal that we've got going on. All right, now let's get into the show. Hello, friends, and welcome to another Attorney X interview. Today, as you can probably guess, I've got Attorney X. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
As a reminder to you and the audience, I ask the same questions to every guest on every show and promise anonymity so we can get the raw truth about your law firm. The goal is for all of us to learn from each other by sharing what's really happening inside our firms. You ready to go?
I am.
Excellent. Let's get into the show. All right, question number one. Start off easy. Well, maybe. How old are you?
I'm 43.
Excellent. Are you married?
I am married.
Do you have kids?
I have 2 children.
Okay, how old are they?
I have an 18-year-old that's a freshman in college, and I have an 11-year-old in the 5th grade.
Awesome. How long have you been practicing law?
I've been practicing law for over 10 years, maybe 11 or 12. I'm not quite sure anymore.
Okay. How'd you get into it? How do you even decide I'm going to go to law school? Like how that far back?
Okay. Law is a second career for me. I worked professionally as a scientist, and I was in charge of water quality and our water quality standards in the state of Hawaii. And the state was sued, and I was designated to be in charge of public records production for these attorneys who had Earth Justice, who had sued us in the EPA. And that kind of sparked my interest in law. I saw them, this lawsuit brought even though it resulted in a settlement, our programs are funded. And I thought that, wow, this is really interesting. These lawyers made a difference for the work that we wanted to do as scientists. So
yeah. So were you okay? So this kind of I know I didn't ask this last time, but I'm just interested. Did you see the lawsuit? Did you see the benefit from the people that were suing you, or from that? Does that make sense? This is a terrible question.
Yeah, no, essentially none of the lawyers would ever talk to me in the room. They just all sat and quiet. Whenever I tried to prod them, like, hey, what's going on in this lawsuit, right?
Right.
They were just kind of gave you these smirks and these looks with their eyes. So I really never really knew, other than what I could see from public record and in the newspaper, what was happening in that lawsuit. But when the EPA and our state finally settled, and one of the conditions of the settlement were that our programs that we were running, our EPA, federally delegated programs under the Clean Water Act, we were funded, right? Like they were mandated to fund our programs and
Okay.
to require us to do certain studies of water bodies that we've been wanting to do for years, but we just never had funding. It wasn't that we as regulators didn't desire to do such work. We would put in the funding requests and it was never adequately funded. So we couldn't do the work. But the settlement mandated them to fund these programs. So I saw the benefit like after the fact, when I was like, wow,
Got it.
all of our funding requests went like unanswered. But then this settlement made them legally required to fund it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. That's cool. Okay. So then did you go, you say to yourself, I want to go to law school. I want to be like an
Right.
environmental lawyer.
So I
kind of thing?
decided ditch the PhD, which was what I was considering at that time.
Got it.
And because I had my master's, and study law and change the world, right?
Mhm.
And I studied law, and then I quickly realized that I'm not independently wealthy, and the people that work in those arenas, many of them, not to like say that they all have money, but many of them have some sort of family resources and are able to take low paying jobs to be able to do this kind of law. You know what I mean?
Got it.
Yeah. So I was like, oh yeah, but
Okay. Yep.
I was a
So,
lawyer nonetheless. So
yeah. So you what do you do out of law school?
out of law school, I clerked for a judge, just because that's what they say you're supposed to do.
Mhm.
And so I did that, and then the economy tanked, and nobody was hiring, and I took a job at the prosecutor's office doing criminal law, which is nothing that I wanted to do. But I got great trial experience,
Yeah.
and I cut my teeth there, and it, I made a difference. Like I felt like I contributed to that office, and eventually I made my way into the private sector doing environmental law, but representing the regulated community, not what I thought I was going to be doing.
So
So,
you like went to work for your arch nemesis in a way?
well, I went to work for what people would call polluters, and and
I feel like you threw up air quotes around that one. Polluters.
and so I made sure that part of my goal in my practice was to educate the regulated communities so that way they understood their compliance obligations. And of course, that also involved negotiating their penalty amounts whenever they messed up and violated the law or their permit regulations. So,
Interesting. Did you have any like dissonance between sort of your love of the environment and your, your employment by the polluters in quotation marks?
no, not really, because I really still thought I was doing like good for society. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit here and because I really, many of my clients, I believe they wanted to make right decisions. You know what I mean? They just didn't understand their obligations, and they really didn't understand how much compliance cost. They were, they're
Right.
business people, and they were like trying to cut corners, and they didn't.
Right.
Once they realized how costly that corner they just cut was on the back end, when they got hit with the penalties, um, many of them, and when they understood the health impacts to their employees that they might not have understood before,
Got it.
then they became good corporate citizens.
Right. And you don't do that anymore though, right?
I don't. It was draining and exhausting because it involved a lot of litigation and in confrontation, and I just couldn't. I couldn't stomach the litigation part of it anymore. It just became too burdensome.
Yeah. So what do you do now?
So now I'm an elder law attorney, and I help families and with aging and getting long-term care needs that they have in place and protecting their legacy goals.
Interesting. What, how did you pick that?
Well, elder law was my plan B when I was in law school. I went there with the dream of being an environmental attorney, and I happened to take elder law as one of elective course, right? Where you're just trying to like make sure you had enough credits to graduate. I sat through that class and I thought to myself, well, this is really interesting. I really, I've always kind of considered myself like an old soul, and I like to help. Like that was one of course, like that was the draw, right? Like helping people.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I sat through that class, it's like, well, if this environmental law thing doesn't work out for me, I'll do elder law, because this seems fascinating to me. I think I could really make a difference in people's lives in this practice area. So when things started to tank for me, well, where I got worn out and exhausted, I guess, for lack of a better word, with the law, I thought about it and I was like, yeah, what about that elder law? And so I circled back and made an appointment with my old professor and told him I was thinking about recreating myself. And he said, go for it.
Nice. Did you, when you transitioned to elder law, did you just go straight out on your own? Did you open your own firm at that time?
I opened my own firm at that time. So I left like big law and went true solo. I had to like figure out, I don't have an IT department. I don't have a mail room. I don't have a receptionist. And so all these things that I had no idea that I was being coddled with, I just kind of took it, for granted.
Yeah.
I had all of that like missing. Plus I'm in a brand new practice area that I'd never done before.
Right.
Yeah.
And you did that pretty recently, right? When did you sort of do this? When did you slow
Yeah,
down?
I did my soft opening November 2017.
Okay. Yeah.
So 2 years, I'm coming up on my 2-year anniversary that I've been in business for myself. Yeah.
That's awesome. What when you opened, how did you fund your firm? Like did you have just some cash that you saved up? Did you borrow some money? Like what that look like?
Yeah, that looked like me being broke. I didn't really have money, and I had already like ruined my credit with the downturn and my divorce and all these other personal problems. I was just finally coming back financially.
Mm-hmm.
And what I just did was I had like an of counsel relationship with the firm that I left. I told them that I would continue working some files on a contract basis just to like keep some food on my table. And I just hit the pavement and told everybody I knew that this is what I'm doing now. And work slowly flowed in. And yeah, I mean, there were some lean months there for a little while, but um, I never wasn't able to make my household bills.
Right.
So,
Nice.
yeah.
Very nice. What do you remember how you got your first client?
Well, my first probate client was a referral from the firm that I had, left. My friends, they were good to me, and they said, "Okay, this is what you're doing." They sent me my first probate client, so that was great. And my first Medicaid client was I got it from a former opposing counsel that I really didn't like. I was leaving the courthouse in the elevator one day, and I told this opposing counsel, we had just had a contentious hearing, and I told him, "Oh, at the end of the year, I'm leaving civil practice. I'm opening my own firm, and I'm doing elder law, Medicaid planning, and probate." And I was like, because I was telling him like I didn't want to deal with like jerks like you anymore. And little did I know, later on, he had emailed me a picture of an ad in the paper. Somebody was doing like a Medicaid planning seminar.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Hey, is this what you do?" In the email. And I was like, yeah, that's what I do now. And he's like, "Oh, okay." And then even months later than that, I still hadn't had a Medicaid planning client. But that was like my ideal client that I was looking for.
Yeah.
A client called me and said, "Larry told me to call you." And I was like, "Larry?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I was like shocked. It was that guy. That guy told them to call me. And it was pretty amazing. And yeah. So
That's
you never
awesome.
know where you're going to get it from.
That's right. That's right. What how did you, this is something that people are always asking me about, and I'm curious to see how you did it. When you decided that you were going to do this elder law thing, how did you sort of like learn How'd you learn the business? Like how did you learn
Right.
the practical side of things?
How I learned the business. I What I did was I signed up for this group called Elder Council. They have a drafting software and they have this immersion camp because I didn't know how I was going to do it. And so at first, when I opened my doors, I didn't even know about Elder Council. Like I was just like, I'm doing this.
Right.
This is what I'm doing. And so I start like researching, like, right. Like I went to the law library and I'm like, oh my God, I can't study like I used to when I was in law school. Like I just can't do this. Like I'm too old for this. Um, and so I was just looking online, like, where are the resources? What can I be doing? And I stumbled upon this Elder Council. They sell this drafting software. It's like all the bells and whistles. It's really kind of pricey. And they also offered this boot camp, essentially. And I signed up. I said, I'm going to the boot camp. It was located in a part of town that my best friend that I went to high school with was in her part of town. I was like, I'm going to stay with her because, of course I had no money.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna drive in to the city and go to this boot camp because I can't stay in their fancy hotel or anything. And I did that. It was a financial like, whoa, maxed out my credit card for that.
Yep.
Went, learned, became the student, and just threw myself into doing like every little scenario that they had. Like they would give you like practice cases and then you could submit it to them and they basically kind of like grade your paper and tell you like, oh, you could have done it this way or that way or whatever, which was super helpful to me because as like a bookworm, a person that was kind of nerdy, it was good and it helped me feel confident that I knew what I was doing and I had this powerful software and I had these kind of like people that I paid a lot of money to that are kind of obligated to help me a little bit to walk me through my first Medicaid planning cases and stuff. And it does like estate planning documents too. So I was like selling wills and stuff, you know what I mean? And I knew I had a good product.
Nice. Sounds like you put a lot of work in though to it, right? Just not just sign up for the course because
I did the homework.
Yeah.
I took it serious, you know what I mean? Because I was like, oh my gosh, the last thing I wanted was to tell all my friends that I'm doing this new practice area, them send me work, and then I screw it all up,
Right.
So.
Yep. That's awesome. How long do you think it took for you to feel comfortable? Did that sort of immersion experience help you?
I think that like right now, as I'm ending year 2, I've finally figured out how to sell my product. I finally figured out how to price things, right? And I can issue spots, see things, and I don't get blindsided like I did the first couple cases. You know what I mean? Not to say that like you screw it up, but like you're like, oh my gosh, I have to go do this another way. And wow, it just so much, you put time in it that you think that coming from like an hourly biller to a flat rate biller, you're wondering like, did I just like screw up the cost effectiveness of this, you know what I mean? Like it cost me more than I anticipated, but nothing like where you actually messed up for the client,
Right. Yep. All right. Switching gears a little bit. Do you work out of your home or do you have a more traditional office?
I primarily work out of my home. I have a traditional office that I can go to when I reserve it. So it's like a virtual, they get my mail there. Yep. My clients see that and think of that as my office, but I just make it very clear to them that I basically only go there when I have appointments because I'd rather not sit alone in a room. I'd rather sit at home with my dog.
Yep. Nice. How do you manage your effectiveness at home? Like, do you have any tips or tricks? And the only reason I ask that is because like when I sit at home, like I turn the TV on, like, I'll be snacking all the time. Like,
right. Yeah. I've never been a TV person. That's just not something I've ever really, I don't even have a show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I drop my kids off. My schedule is pretty rigorous in the sense that like I drop my kids off at school and I'm like, hit my list because I got to get, to pick up my daughter from Carline by a certain time. And like, I just treat it like it's my office. Like, the refrigerator's there. So I do have that as a, snacking. But not anything that no time wasting. My office years kind of trained me, and I just hit it like it's a regular desk. Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. And you already mentioned this, but you do flat fee billing
I
mostly?
do. Yeah. Primarily flat fee billing.
And you also sort of mentioned earlier, one of the things that you've sort of honed in on over this last 2 years is the pricing.
Right.
Tell me a little bit maybe about the mistakes that you make, or like the sort of the mentality that you bring to it, how you decide what to price. I know this is something that people really.
Right. So I had no idea how much anything should cost, right? Like, I'm new to a practice area, so I don't even know what other people charge. And so I asked other people, right? Like, hey, how much do you
Right.
charge, right? And then I'm kind of feeling like they're like they're just not honest, right? They're either lowballing something or they're blowing it up too high. It's kind of what like my gut was telling me. The other thing, at that elder council boot camp, they talked to us about pricing, and they said that your Medicaid plan should cost about whatever it costs for 1 month's nursing home care in your area, like wherever you live in the country. Like,
Oh, okay, got it.
that was like their rule of thumb, right? So they're like,
Yeah,
figure out how much 1 month's nursing home care costs in your area, and your plan should cost about that. Um, so that was kind of helpful to me. So I put that and I went lower, right? Because I'm new and I'm trying to lure people. And I just felt more confident in my sales. Like I could just say the number and it didn't flinch, right? Like,
right.
and that's really important. I'd rather have them retain me and make, $1,000 less than have them walk away because I couldn't say the number with confidence.
Sure.
Um, and then I just kind of set my other little a la carte items just based on what I felt good about. I mean,
Yeah,
to be quite honest, based on what other people were saying their ranges, and I kind of just used my own gut and said, this is what I feel good about, this, and this is what I can confidently sell. And same thing with the probates. I kind of asked around, and I didn't like what other people were charging, and I just decided I'm doing it for this much, and it's been good. I'm
yeah.
yeah.
Little side story about that. Being able to like say your number with confidence.
Hmm.
When I first started, when I was doing DUIs and stuff like that, I used to stand in front of my bathroom mirror and just say the numbers over and over and over again until I didn't feel like I would look like a punk when I was saying them. I would be
Right.
like, I would be like 4,500. I would say it all kinds of different ways, because like there's nothing worse than going somebody asks like, all right, so how much it costs? And you're like, 4,500, and
Right.
they're like, okay, I'm out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. Where they're like, oh, you don't even know. Like, you're just making it up. Right.
Right. Totally. Yeah. It takes practice. These are the things that you really got to work on, because it can, especially if you've never, if you haven't thrown out numbers like that, they can sort of seem big in your mind at the beginning, and
Right.
it's important to
Yeah.
have confidence in what you're charging for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
What how is it just you in your firm right now? Do you have anybody working for you? Like, what's that look like?
So it's like just me in the sense that I'm the one and only employee. I have a probate paralegal that she's actually local, but she's remote because we met each other once, just to kind of like see each other.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but she works for me project by project. So I just send her a probate and she works with me on that probate. As a contract worker, she does things for other attorneys. Um, and then I have a Medicaid application processor, like a specialist. Like, I did my planning, and then she helps my people go through the governmental hoops to qualify for Medicaid.
Yeah.
Um, and she, again, is a virtual person, and she's by project. So I have a client that needs a Medicaid application, and I say, please work with this client on this Medicaid application. And then there could be months that I don't need anything from either of them, or I could be sending them new projects all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
How did you find them?
Um, I found the probate paralegal through a person I went to law school with. She does mostly like personal injury stuff, and they occasionally, I guess, they need probate type work done in
Yep.
that arena.
Yep. Yep.
And so she's like, "Oh, Melissa, this lady, we were friends before I even went to law school. She's great." And I said, "Okay, send me your information." So she came, like, referred to me, and then the Medicaid specialist, somebody on one of the Facebook groups had mentioned that they stumbled upon this great help of a remote Medicaid application processor. And I was like, "Oh, send me your information." And ever since I've been working with her, my clients like only rave about her. So I'm really happy that I stumbled upon her as well.
Nice. Very nice. All right. So let's see. So this is basically like year two, right?
Yeah.
What'd you make like year one? What was year one sort of like big gross revenue?
Okay. So year one, I brought home 88,000, like I grossed
Yep.
$88,000,
That's pretty
and
good.
I paid myself about 54% of that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yep. Nice. And how was 2019 looking so far?
So 2019, I am at that same number, and I still have a month to go.
Right.
So, yeah,
Cool.
I mean, I'm not like raking in big money, but I will say that I've shifted where my
That's right.
money comes from,
That's right.
because in year one, I still 80% of my caseload was still civil litigation, because people were referring me civil litigation cases early on when I went out on my own. They like didn't get the message that I'm not doing that, but I took
Right.
it just to like keep food on my table.
Yep.
And now year two, the bulk, I would say a little slightly over 50%, like, 59% or whatever, is
Yep.
elder law probate. And the other remaining percentage is civil, but it's wrapping up. I'm wrapping that up, and I'm not taking more of those in. I'm getting more and more elder law probate cases. So even though I'm making similar lower wage, grossing, I'm truly shifting into my ideal practice area. So I'm really happy
Right.
with that.
So another way to look at it actually is that your business has grown sort of in a way 3x from year one to year two, because 20% of your business was elder law. Now it's about 60, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, if we frame it like that, I'm going in the direction I wanted to go in.
Yeah.
And the other thing that may be helpful to listeners is that I don't really work a traditional 40-hour work week or 60-hour work week that people
Right.
might think of when they think of an entrepreneur on our own. I took this shift for like peace of mind and sanity, and being more present for my family. So literally, I'm only working when my daughter's in school. And that even includes, sometimes I don't work even then if I go exercise, because that's like my time alone. I can exercise in there. So I'm probably working like 25, 35 hours a week, and bringing home that kind of
Right.
money. So,
That's fantastic. Where do most of your clients come from?
my clients come from a mixed bag of referrals from other attorneys, and now more so since I've been implementing the social media marketing, I've been getting more calls and social media type, like that's where they're finding me. It's on
Yep.
social media.
What are you doing social media? Let's ask both questions.
Right.
How do you cultivate your referral sources? Is it just people that you know, or do you do anything like intentionally, like specifically to sort of work on those relationships?
Okay. Yeah. Mostly it's just people I know from like living, like having worked as an attorney, like people I used to work at various firms with, even like, however many firms ago. Um, People I went to law school with. And then those are like my major like lawyer based referral things. Also, I on Facebook, those lawyer groups, like if people like say, "Hey, we're looking for an elder law attorney in this area," I'll say I'm happy to help, and kind of throw in my acuity link there. um, then with the social media, it's through your work about creating this YouTube channel and putting out video content, and then having your team kind of help push that out into the world, because I couldn't figure that one out myself. Like, it was just too much for me, so
Yep.
yeah.
That's awesome. And so a lot of what you're doing internet wise is videos, things like that for the most part.
Videos, yeah, things like that, and then it just gets pushed to all the different platforms. And I don't know, people find me, they just say they found me on the internet, right? Like, I'm dealing with people who, they're not specific, and you can attempt to try to drill down, but then they will just be like, I don't know,
Right.
Yeah.
That's the best thing. I love to hear. I love it when people tell me they found me on the internet, because it just means you're out there,
Right.
Wherever
Yeah.
they're looking, they're finding you, so that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. Let's see. What's your biggest challenge right now?
So my biggest challenge right now is essentially just doing the thing, and staying consistent, and intentional with everything that I do. That's really, I just need to keep my momentum. Like, I finally got things going, and it's easy to get distracted, particularly with the videos, like, just to say I don't want to do them because they're a little still uncomfortable for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that that's a valuable use of my time, that I do get great returns on it. So carving out the time for me to, like, actually put my makeup on, sit in clothing, you know what I mean? Like, appropriate clothing in front of a camera, you know what I mean? Like, it might sound like, oh, just do a video. I'm like, it takes me like 30 minutes to get ready for this video. And then, you do the video, and all that good stuff. Because normally, like I said, I'm just, sitting in my house in front of my computer, like, probably barely have brushed my teeth. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
But just churning out whatever work, that I'm doing there, or talking to leads and stuff like that on the phone, and not, yeah. Mm-hmm.
When it comes to doing that marketing stuff, have you found or created any sort of like little sneaky tricks to help you to get to do anything? Or is it for you, is it just a matter of saying, like, okay, like, I'm doing this, I don't care, like, we're getting it done?
Right. I basically tell myself, here's a block on my calendar. I'm doing this today. I pray to God that I don't have an Amazon package coming,
Right.
because that makes my dog bark, you know what I mean? And then that whole
I
video is ruined.
My dog was just barking. I don't know if you could hear him. I'm at home. My
Right.
dog, shut up, dog.
Yeah. I'm like, man, I got to record it again. Right.
That's
like,
right.
it's
Like,
so
dang it.
good too,
Yeah.
And so I have that, or I also have, like, I'm married, so my husband will come home early. I'm like, who said you could come home early? Like,
Right.
yeah. So, because then he
Nice.
wants to make noise, and I'm like,
Yep.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. What's your sort of your big goal for 2020?
So I would like to I'd like to generate $25,000 a month. Like, that's my big goal. I think I could get there if I did like 3 summary probates and 2 Medicaid plans a month.
Yep.
I think I could easily get there. So it's just a matter of creating the stream to get the volume of those 5 new cases every month. Yeah, it seems easy, right? Like 5, like, how hard is 5 cases? But yeah, I think it's doable, but it's still, at this point for me, entering year 3, it's a stretch. It's a goal. You know what I mean? It's definitely a real goal.
It's definitely doable. You got to remember too, like, year 3 of your business, it's still a baby,
Right.
That's I talk to people about this all the time, but we just see these stories about these meteoric rises of these businesses. But it never goes that fast, even for those businesses, and B, we're a service-based business. We're not a software type of a thing where we can acquire new customers at like crazy exponential rates, so it's just really important, I think, to bring in the proper perspective and be able to make sure that we're like, for example, I would be, you may be making the same amount of money this year, but to sort of like 3x the work that you want, that's kind of a
Right.
big deal.
Yeah.
Obviously we'd all like to make more money, but it's a sign of progress. So,
Right. When I realized that I actually made the shift and I'm actually like, I tell everybody I'm an elder law attorney, but like I can now actually say I'm a true elder law attorney, right? Like you know what I mean? Like my
yeah,
business is elder law. That was an exciting thing for me
yeah,
to you know what I mean? Not
yeah,
be like a faker, you know?
yep, yep. I love it. All right. So last two questions. If you were talking to yourself when you first started, what sort of advice would you have given yourself now, knowing what you know now?
Um, I would probably just tell myself, you know what you're doing. You don't believe you do, but you do know what you're doing and you're going to be fine. um, I would probably be able to sleep a little bit better because that it was mostly like the loss of sleep of like, oh my gosh, am I gonna be able to pay for my kids' school this month, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, um, and also just keep showing up and keep just do it. And I remember what was super meaningful when I went to our first live session that you held, and like it was worth the price of admission for me, just the takeaway of stop being the student and just do something.
Yeah.
um, because I could spend my whole life studying this, like how to be an elder law attorney, what's the best way to do this Medicaid plan, but in reality there's like it's a personalized plan. You could do it any different way, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
There's no right or wrong. And even with probates, like uh if you filed the wrong thing, the judge is just going to say do it again, right? Like
Right.
renotice it. Okay, so we sit another 30 days, like, not to be like the person's dead, but the person's dead, right? I mean, what's
Yeah.
30 more days?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, at this point, it will, there, nobody's losing any, no money's being lost, no, everything's still where it is. It's just 30 days,
Yep.
things like that. um that was that would be kind of what I'd tell myself, that you're doing just fine.
That's awesome. And then sort of piggyback off of that, what sort of is your best piece of advice that you'd give for everybody that's listening, for just any sort of anybody that owns a firm and is sort of doing their thing? What do you have to tell them?
um well, one of the best things that I did for myself, besides just studying, right, and paying the big money for that boot camp, and then hooking up with your group and really getting out there with the videos that helped me, and getting the mindset part of just doing the thing, was I also did some money work where I kind of worked out what my relationship is with money,
Mhm.
because we all have relationships with money, and getting clear about that was really a big thing for me. And I think a lot of people make a bunch of different money and make money decisions and they're not really intentional, and they don't really understand their own um, relationship with money. And I think that if that was something other people would be willing to explore, they might have some aha moments and realize that maybe they're doing better than they thought they were, or maybe have a bunch of money and they're not putting it to things that they truly value. You know what I mean? And make that
Sure.
shift. Yeah.
How did you pursue that? Like, did you read books? Did you talk to somebody? Like what?
Yeah, because I realized that I'm like helping people with their finances, right? Like
Yeah.
putting their like estates in order to be able to, and like shifting their assets. And I thought all of it, like for some reason, when I first got started with this, I thought I wasn't good with money, right? I was like, I don't understand. Like, I'm not good with money. I can't, And then I was like, you're a scientist. you did hard math, right? Like, I understand numbers. I can do hard math. I can balance chemical equations, right? Like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? You can't do the math, right? I just realized I didn't understand financial language. That's what I didn't understand. And so I stumbled upon a library book, The Art of Money, and I
Okay.
read the book, and it was all woo-woo, all about like your like somatic principle, like therapy type principles, but with accounting. And I realized that for some reason, like in my childhood, I had like this poverty mindset. Like I just thought I grew up poor.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't really poor. I mean, we weren't particularly wealthy, but like, you know what I mean? But I was never poor. And just unpacking all of that and then realizing I can do hard math, and all I really needed was to learn the language. I just needed to understand what these words meant. And once I got clear on all that, I was like, you can completely do this. Like, you are the most equipped to help families with this, because you had your own history with money as well, and they all have their histories with money. They come with money
Yep.
shame and they think that certain things are wasteful, right? Like, there's all kinds of like moral overlays on money. And it's just something that I think I'm able to bring to my clients just when we have our conversations. The way I frame my questions and my intake form and like their goals, I'm able to dig into a little bit of how they have a relationship with money and what their goals are, and maybe give them an opportunity to have aha moments, even though they've been, they're like 80, 90 years old and they never considered that. And now they realize, oh, wow, you know, that
Yeah.
is, that is why I think the way I think. So
It's so interesting, and I talk about this woo-woo stuff all the time, but like the stories that two things, the stories that we tell ourselves that we live by that are just completely made up and in our minds, and then also our inability or how much we hate not being good at something often at the beginning leads us to just sort of ignoring entire sections of things that we might otherwise be interested in or think differently about if we just took a little time, and
right,
worked on it. It's crazy.
right.
It's crazy. That's awesome. That's great. That was a great sort of way, I think, to wrap this up. For all of you, please, I wrote down The Art of Money. I'm going to go read that. I haven't read it, and it sounds great. I know I have my money issues, and I think everybody does. Even if you don't think you do, I would guess that you do, because I think we all have these, particularly when it comes to money, we have these stories that we sort of live by, and
Right.
no,
We don't know why we do what we do with our money. You know what I mean?
that's right.
Yeah.
There's this interesting, I don't know if it's actually an experiment or if it was sort of anecdotal, but there's a story that I remember hearing about this person who they thought let's say it's like a salesman. Okay. They thought they were like a $40,000 a year salesman. And so whether you dropped them in a bad neighborhood or in a good neighborhood, in a place where people were buying or where people were not buying, they always made $40,000 because that's what they thought they were worth. The same way with the guy or the gal that thought they were worth 100K. You drop them in a bad neighborhood and a good neighborhood, it doesn't matter. They made 100K because they thought they were worth 100K. And I think that there's a lot to be said for that, and acknowledging that and being aware of that, I think, can often make a big difference in the progress of your business, of your finances, of everything, So
Right. No.
cool. All right. Thank you so much for your time and your transparency, and welcome to the Attorney X Alumni Association.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. That's a wrap, everybody. Thanks again for listening. I really appreciate your time and attention. And a reminder, if you want to keep the Attorney X series going, there's only one way to do that: to get more of you on the show. To schedule a time to talk with me, talk about your firm anonymously, and get that free t-shirt, go to theunconventionalattorney.com/attorneyx. That's theunconventionalattorney.com/attorneyx. Can't wait to have you on the show. See ya.